Hello, this is Chris Gannon. Today I would like to show you how to make this gooey sort of splat animation interactive radio button thing. I made it quite a while ago and I've had loads of people. I never actually made it public on CodePen. I kind of thought, well, it might make a nice tutorial. Quite a few people have asked me how to make it, and so here goes. The actual, I'll make the original one I made public once I've made this tutorial, and it's actually a radio button, so you can click between three different ones. And it, in fact, let me show you. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's is it that one? Yeah. Yeah, so there it is, and you can and click on the different ones, and it's pretty snazzy, eh? So anyway, let's go and make it. So, as always, I start off in Illustrator, let me just talk. If I just talk about the component parts, so. There are, in fact, let me go into Illustrator, and I've already drawn the bits, but I'm not gonna sort of I'm not gonna draw them for you, but I will actually go through the bits that I've got. Okay, so this is in Illustrator. If you've seen any of my tutorials before, you'll know that I always draw. Oh, what's that? I don't want that. I always draw this like a shape layer or rectangle. As the background, and then copy everything along, so that everything that I copy, I call this the context layer. I don't use it, but I copy everything along with it to keep elements like this in place, like in the center. Okay, so let me just put that back. Right. Okay, so let me just hide these. So first of all, fairly simple one is a ring, and it's just a stroked stroke circle with a transparent fill, and then the radio button bit in the center is a simple filled circle, and then there's a group of lines. Now it's worth just talking about these for a moment. Let me just you notice that it's a group of lines I've made. Now all of the lines are drawn from the center outwards, and with SVG, when you start drawing, that's I know it sounds obvious, but it's the start of the path, and then when you finish drawing, that's the end of the path. Now when you're making things like this, it's quite easy to think, well, I'll just copy that and then rotate it round, rotate it round, rotate it round, and sometimes you and then maybe if you've got like three, oh well, I'll just sort of copy them and then mirror it or whatever. And sometimes you might end up with this one, for example, being drawn from the middle outwards, and then ones over here actually being drawn from the outside inwards. And so when you end up animating the line, sort of drawing it on and off, you'll find that some of them draw outwards and some of them draw inwards. I actually have a script that I found online that can reverse the path, which is quite useful. I'll put that in the notes at the end. So yeah, so this is these are all, you notice these are all just lines that are drawn from the inside outwards, and they will animate from the middle out. Okay, and they're grouped as well just to keep it tidy. And then you've got your central radio button and then the ring. Okay, so let's just copy all of those. So I copy everything. Command C, Control C, whatever, and then I just nip over to Sublime or any text editor, paste that in, and then you end up with your SVG. Actually, do you know what we're going to do? We're going to use the export. We're going to compare. This is the way I normally do it, this was before the new export features came in. I sort of copy it and then paste it into a text editor. What we'll do is we'll just do a quick comparison with the newer ways of exporting SVG, and that is by, you can either export or you can export selection. On this occasion I'm just going to select everything. I'm just going to do export selection. You actually can't see this. me just move this over here so you can see it. So we do export selection, okay, and then Splat radio, I'll just put that into my SVG, Splat radio, and then it comes up with a box. I'm not bothered to actually create the SVG, I'm not going to minify it because I want to actually edit it and do stuff with the code. And I'm just going to show the code. This is the interim dialog before it actually saves the SVG. I don't actually want to create an SVG file, but I do want to see the code. So let me just pop the code open. And so here we are. And I'm just going to copy this into my other file. So this was the copy and paste method. And this is the what's created when you do export selection. Let me see. Let me just make that a bit bigger for you. And the main differences are that export selection, they've spent quite a lot of time on ensuring that there's quite a lot less crap generated. So all this, whatever this is, I don't even know what that is. It's rubbish that Adobe injects into it. You don't need that. You also don't need X and Y, because if you don't explicitly state the X and Y, then it's assumed that it's 0. What else? It hasn't added all this _2_1 rubbish. You'll notice it's actually exported the names correctly, which is a breath of fresh air. It's added a title, which is quite useful. What else is it? Yeah, it just generally generates a cleaner SVG and requires less editing. So that's cool. So we're going to use the export selection version. So I'm going to delete that one. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but on this occasion we'll use it. Right. We can do a little bit of further cleaning up of ourselves for ourselves, because if you'll notice that this is all in a group. Oops, this is all in a group. All these lines are in a group, so we don't have to keep explicitly saying, declaring these attributes. What we can do is, if they all share the same attribute, then we can delete all of these and then just put them in the parent group, and that will apply to every single thing that's inside the inside that group. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a find and replace on this. So find and replace, I'm going to find that. Actually, first of all, I'm going to copy it and find and replace it with nothing. So I just delete it, yeah, and then I'll just paste that single line in there. So now all of these lines will have these properties applied to it. It just keeps it, a bit neater. We don't need this background rectangle. Delete that. Okay, we're ready. So actually, we don't need this ID. Well, I'm going to call that Splat SVG. There you go. I don't need this data name. Although that data name comes from, if you want to edit that, you can go into Illustrator and I think it's that. I think it takes the well, let's just test that. Let's just say Splat layer. Let's just call that, and then we'll do export selection, export, yes, and then we'll just show the code. Oh, it's minified it. Sorry, hold on a minute. Don't want that. Show the code. And go into here. Let's just compare that. And there you go. Look, it's just given it an ID of Splat layer, and it hasn't even bothered using the data name. Okay, data name. That's what it was using. So, all right. So copy that. Head over to. Okay. So we're going to start from scratch. Sometimes I start with a sort of a pen that's sort of pre-done and to save a bit of time, and I'm going to start with an empty pen and load all the libraries so you can see where they all come from, and I am going to cut and paste some stuff because there's just no point in going through a whole load of stuff that I use all the time, and that I can explain in 5 minutes, and it will take me 10 minutes to type. So I'm going to do just a new fresh pen with nothing in it. Let me bring this down so you can see it all. Okay. Let me fill my recording window. All right. And I'll just paste that in there. Now we can't see anything. Why is that? I know why. Because everything's white on a white background. Okay. So I'm actually going to go into any old pen of mine. In fact, let me just search for Splat. Let me do, I think the forks. Which one is it? Let me take this one. I'm going to copy a load of CSS, and I'll just talk to you about it. So it's just creating a nice background, hiding the overflow on the body, and doing some sort of fairly usual stuff. Some people are CSS expert. I'm not a CSS expert at all. CSS people will say, we don't need to do that. Well, I've been doing it for years and it's all fine. I'll just hide that for a sec. Oh, right. Okay, so the export selection, it didn't generate a width and a height. So I'm going to put a width in of 600 pixels and a height of 600 pixels. All right. There you go. You probably did learn something from that. I did. About the export selection not generating a width and a height. And I think that's because I clicked responsive. In fact, let's just go back in there. Actually, I've still got this open, look. If I turn responsive off, show the code, and look, it's generated a width and a height. There you go. Solved. Cancel that. Right. Oh, let's get on with this. Okay, so I'm going to use GreenSock. Which is TweenMax. You can actually add that from the. Let's add some libraries. So open your settings, JavaScript, and we can go and add TweenMax. The latest one is actually 1.18.2, which and we're going to call this Splat YouTube, and I'm going to make it private for the time being. Okay. So the libraries it uses are GreenSock for the animation, of course. You wouldn't use anything else unless you're crazy. And DrawSVG, which is a paid plugin, but you can use it for free on CodePen. Let's go and get that. Where can we get that from? You can do, if you do a search for GreenSock CodePen paid plugins. I think you'll find a. Where is it? I'll put this in the. Is it this one? Yes. I'll put this in the notes as well, and so you can go and get the plugins and play with them. So what do I want? I want DrawSVG. Where are you? DrawSVG. There we go. And that's for drawing the lines. Where are we there? So let's just add that in. Okay, so that'll do for now. There's a few little shortcuts I use. So let's start doing some JavaScript. So there's a few little shortcuts I use. I'm just going to copy these and I'll just explain what they are. So often I need the XML namespace if I'm dynamically creating stuff. I don't need it in this particular instance, so I shall delete it. It's just a reference to that string. So when you're dynamically creating circles or lines or use tags or whatever, you need that XML namespace as a string in the constructor, but we don't need that. This is I use this all the time. It's just a sort of a shorthand way of creating a document.query selector. So you'll notice that these are all local variables, select and select all, and they allow you to do query selector and query selector all in a shorthand sort of way. So if we go through here, we'll find that ring is a circle, and I've created a variable ring by doing ring equals select hash ring. Okay, so I now have a reference to that. Right, let's get on. Let's do some animation. Right, everything's going to be in a timeline, so we're going to do var TL is a new timeline max. In this particular animation or interactive whatever, the lines, if you notice down here, the lines actually aren't drawn from the center. Let's go and look at our reference one. They're not actually drawn from the center. You never see them around this ring. They're actually drawn from around the edge. They sort of blobble out from the edge, yeah. And so if we go back here, it's from around here, which is around 30 or 40% along the line. Okay. So what we're going to do first is we're going to draw the SVG at about 30 or 40% for both the start and the finish, so it's invisible. Yeah. So you say the start. It starts here. Let me actually find a bigger version. Let me get this in debug mode. It makes it nice and big. So so you'll see that it you never see it drawing from the center. Okay. So the first thing we'll do before we actually start doing the timeline is I'm going to initialize all the lines, and there's a sort of a quick way of, in fact, what shall I do? Shall I, because I've made this, no, I'll show you how to select everything in the group using GreenSock selector method, because GreenSock selector method is quite intuitive and cool, and it saves you messing around with a load of this stuff if you don't need to create a variable. We'll also create other variables that we will use. So so I'm going to talk to all of these, where are we, over here, all of these lines in the click line group. Okay, I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to set them all to be their DrawSVG to be the start point there and the end point there, so that they're invisible. All right, so we can say click line group, set the click line group, but we want all the lines in there. We want to talk to those, comma, and then we're going to say draw SVG, and I think it's going to, let's say it's about 40%. So they'll disappear. Oops, they'll disappear, and they've disappeared. They are there. They're just the start and the end point of the lines is at the same spot, so they're essentially invisible. Okay, that's just like an initialization for those lines. All right. So first thing we're going to do is we will animate the ring. What shall we do? Let's animate the lines. So we're going to say, so we're going to do TL .2, and don't forget they're all at 40% at the moment. So we're going to do, we can do the same thing. I should probably have created a variable for these. It's, actually, we will create a variable because it's a lot cleaner. I just wanted to show you that that's what you can do in GreenSock, and it's a cool way of doing it. So we're going to do all lines equals select all, and then we do the same. We'll do the same thing. Oops, there we go. Yeah. So that's just another way of doing it, because we're going to be animating them quite a few times. We might as well create a variable. Sometimes if you're just doing a one-off animation, you might as well just pass in a string and use GreenSock selector system, but as it is, we're going to be animating these quite often. So all right then, so we've set them to 40%, and we're going to start animating them we're gonna do segments. So we're gonna do like a 30% segment, so that 30% comes out, and then it that 30% appears to continue off. Okay, and we'll do it over about 0.5 seconds. Let's see. So we'll do draw SVG. So at the moment they're at 40%, so we'll start them at 40% and we'll draw them to 70%. All right, let's just put that on a, repeat that so it goes over and over so we can see what's going on. And we'll put a repeat delay on it, so it's not quite as frenetic. All right, and the beauty of GreenSock Timeline Max is that you can chain these together. I don't have to keep doing TL.2 blah 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 blah. I can, ensuring I miss off, I don't put in a semicolon. I just go to the next line and do .2, and this is appending a new animation to the end of the timeline. Okay, and we'll do 0.5, and so it's at 70% now. And so we're just going to draw SVG, we're just going to draw the entire thing off. So let's have a look at that. Yeah. So that is not very difficult, I would say. There's a problem with this, and that is that if you don't add in an ease into a tween in Timeline Max or Tween Max or Tween Light or anything like that, it assumes that you want an ease out function, and I think it's power2.easeout is the default if you don't define one. And with this kind of animation, especially when you're drawing strokes along a line, you usually don't. You'll notice it goes 40 to 70% goes yeah, we don't want that. We want it to be a linear. So I'm just going to select both of these, a comma. You can do multiple line editing in CodePen. We're going to do an ease linear.ease none. And now you've got a continuous line drawing to 30% of it is drawing from 40 to 70%, and then the rest of it's disappearing. So that is cool. Okay, so what's next? We want to add in a kind of a sort of a wobble to the. Actually, no. What we'll do is we'll do some other fun stuff now. We'll go and get the goo, and we'll add the goo to it. Now, again, I'm gonna copy and paste this, and I'm gonna talk about it because I've used this in a few tutorials before, and I've never talked about it. Okay, I've just noticed that when you export a selection, you don't get a defs tag. Now, the defs tag is the definitions tag, and it's required. It's a sort of it's like it's off stage. It's like the green room, if you like, and you can call characters from it and call actors from it and call elements from it and apply them to the stage. So anything that you put in the defs tag, it's a definition of something, and then you can use instances of it. So gradients, symbols, filters, anything really that you want to then use on the stage here. Yeah. So anything in here is not visible but can be referenced and then shown here. Okay. So we're going to put in a filter. Now this is the classic goo filter, and what it does is it blurs. We're gonna let's break this down. So let's get rid of that for a minute. So what it's doing is we're going to apply. Well, what we'll do is we'll apply the blur. Sorry, we'll apply the goo, and then we will talk about how it's working. Okay. when you want to apply these kind of filters to several things, they need to be in a group together in order to interact. And because of the way this filter works, you most definitely need to be blurring everything inside one group and then applying this this color matrix to sort of to complete the goo effect. Okay, so at the moment, all we've got is we've got all these separate. We've got the lines, and we've got the radio, and we've got the ring. And none of them are really particularly grouped, and we need to do that. So we need to group the entire thing. Okay, so I'm going to put a G tag. We'll call it class equals radio group. Yeah, and then we're going to go right down to the bottom. So the entire thing, and then just close that group. Okay. So now we've got a group, and this is where we'll apply the filter. So everything inside has the filter applied to it. So we do filter equals URL hash goo. So at the moment, you're seeing one component part of the goo filter, and that is the blurring. Now the blurring is important so that it bleeds the edges of all the bits that you want made gooey. It blurs them all together. Now the crucial part of this effect is the color matrix, and what the color matrix does is it looks at the alpha channel, or the blend, the blurred edges, and it boosts those up. It boosts the contrast right up, and so you end up with this sort of globular effect where the blurriness is actually been boosted. So there's no fall off. There's no anti-aliasing. Actually you do get anti-aliasing problems actually with it, but it boosts. It makes all of the nice smooth blurring. It makes all of those pixels exactly the same opacity. So let's unblur that. Add the color matrix, and we're starting to see the splat thing forming. Let's just, if you put that out again, you'll see, if you look inside, let's have a look. Actually, do you know what we'll do? We'll save that and we'll just create a debug version so we can, so it's a bit bigger. So you can see they're all sort of joining together in a blur, and then when you boost the contrast of the alpha channel, it sort of pushes them all together in this lovely sort of splatty kind of way. What it also does is it tends to erode the edges of things, and you'll notice that if I just remove that goo for a sec, see the thickness of this line is, what is it? It's like, let's have a look at what's the thickness of this ring, is 4. But when we apply the goo, it's seriously eroded. So we need to boost that back up again, I would say. Let's maybe just push that up to about 6. No, maybe 5. Just to get it back to what it was. Yeah, so I think that's kind of looking all right. Yeah. I think as well, it might be worth. Well, no, I'm thinking now. I'm just thinking out loud. It might be even worth bumping the lines up. You see, the nice thing about applying the attributes and properties to a group. This is the click lines. All the lines. When you apply it to a group, you can edit everything really, really easily and quickly. So it's just it's pretty useful. All right, so we're kind of nearly there, really. You'll notice that on this one there's a little bit of a sort of a sort of an inwardly wobble and a sort of a scale that adds to the effect. And if I do it really quickly, you'll notice that it sort of becomes slightly oval. So the outer ring becomes oval, and the circle inside has a sort of a contra scale, so it does the opposite. So it ends up looking a bit like an eye. Okay, so that's what we'll do. And that is, so let's create a reference to the ring. Oh no, we already have got a reference to the ring. We'll create a reference to radio 0 as well. That's fine. Copy. Radio 0. Okay, so that's just another local reference. And we'll do a from to, so we can do a from to, but we want these to happen at the same time, so we'll offset this in a sec. So we'll do radio 0, and how long is that going to be for? Let me think about this for a minute. Actually, we'll do ring first. Ring 1. And I need to add in another. So you've got from to, so you've got the object for the from and an object for the to. So we're going to be animating from a property to a property. And because if you notice that ring is a circle, it's like a native SVG element, and with Tween Max you have the attribute plugin, which we'll need because we're going to animate the CX, CY. Oh, actually, I've just realised. Aha. In order for this to be, let's just go back to here. You notice that actually, we're not doing a simple radius animation. It's actually a more of an elliptical shape. So we're going to have to change this from a circle to an ellipse, I think. So I think that's what we'll do. So let's, because otherwise when you change it to an ellipse, it means you have an RX and an RY property, which gives you more flexibility. You can still animate it like a circle by animating the RX and RY at the same time with the same values, which is the same as a simple R radius value. But it just gives you more granularity, more sort of flexibility. So we're going to change ring to an ellipse, and there are a few things that there's a few changes that we need to make. So with an ellipse, you don't just have an R radius, you have an RX, so the X radius, and you have the RY, which is, we'll do that as 24 as well, and hopefully that should just pop back into as it was. Okay, so we've now changed it to an ellipse, but now we can separately animate or independently animate the X radius and the Y radius, so the up and down, so that you can get an egg shape, well, sort of an oval shape. So that's what we'll do. So back over to the JavaScript, do attribute, because it's an attribute that we're going to be animating, and we're going to go from, we're going to do RX, both of them, RY, both of them are going to be from 0. Okay. So that's the first from, and then we're going to go to attribute RY22. Now what that's doing is it's keeping it at the RX at 0 and animating it up to 22 on the RY. Okay, I'll explain that in a minute. And so the next animation after that is going to be .2. I'll talk about this in a sec so that it's a bit clearer. We'll do 1. and we'll do attribute RX to 22. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing them at slightly different times to get a slightly phased animation. So it'll go to the RY up, take longer to go RY, and take shorter time to go on the RX. So you'll get this sort of wobbling egg shape that is here. Yeah, it's a bit like squash and stretch. It goes flat and then it goes thin. It goes sort of flat and then it goes sort of tall and thin, but very, very subtly. It's all about subtlety, really, animation, as you probably know. This one's been is told to start at the time of this one, which is fine, but we need to move this one back minus 0.5. Is it 0.5? Yeah, or maybe even no. Actually, we'll go back to 1. We'll go back to the start. Something like that. We'll also need to add in a nice, a sort of an elasticy sort of animation, ease rather. So we'll do an elastic for both of them. But again, just to keep things looking a bit more organic and slightly more interesting, we'll set different configurations for the elastic. So 0.8 for this one, 0.6. So this is the overshoot and this is the amplitude, and you can just leave it like that and it'll just use defaults, but I always like to configure my elastic animations, and we'll do the same for this one, but we'll change it so that there's a much heavier overshoot and slightly less of the amplitude, the amount it wobbles. And you can see that we're already starting to sort of get closer to what we're after. I think this might be a little bit. That might be a bit better. We want that sort of a sort of a popping, and I think this is too fat now as well. Do 7 on that. 7 on the drawing lines, maybe 6. Yeah, that'll do. I think we were back to where we started. Okay, and finally, I think we're kind of nearly there. What else have we got to add? I think we'll just do. Oh yes, I think this central circle bit. I think we'll just put a little animation on that one as well. I'm just going to do. I'm going to do a from to on that one as well, so that every time you click it, it just does a little wobble. So I'm just going to copy this one, paste it over, and then just change it out for Radio 0. This is not Radio 0 is a. What is Radio 0? It is a circle. It's not an ellipse. Okay, so we can't use RX and RY. We'll just use R. And we'll do it from R4. So it's just a little bit smaller, and we'll go up to what its current size is 13, and so we'll go up to 13. And we'll put quite a heavy overshoot on that, and we'll put quite a small amplitude on it. And I think that's pretty much it. What else have I missed? Anything else? I don't think I've missed anything else. I think the only thing now is to sort of is to trigger it really. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do function make splat. I don't know. So this will make the actual splat. Let's go down here. Okay. So now nothing will happen. And we'll just create an external reference TL. And so we can do make splat. So that makes it. You notice it's still playing, but we don't want it to play straight off the bat, do we? We want it to be paused. True. Ah, that's a problem, isn't it? Right. Stuff that. We're going to do play splat, and we'll put that on a click. Okay. So we'll do. Where are we? Radio group. Should we do it on there or radio? No, radio group. Let's make a reference to that. So you'll notice. Oh, copy. So this is we're going to add the interaction to it to play it. So we'll say radio group, but you'll notice I made it a class. So we just need to change that to a dot. Oh, not ring group. Come on, radio group. All right, copy that. We may end up with a slight sort of hit area problem, but let's have a look. So we do radio group dot. Well, there's loads of ways of doing it. We'll do on click equals function e. And we'll do play splat. That work? Oh no, it's pause, isn't it? That's not good. And we'll make that local again. We don't need that to be accessible because we're just going to create it every time. So super. Oh. Okay, so there's a slight problem when we click it, and that is that the lines remain drawn. Once you click it, let's just sort of refresh that. Just making sure that this just gets refreshed. Okay, so the first time I click it, it'll play correctly. And then, but now all the outside lines are drawn outwards, so they're all out here at 100%, 100%, 100%. So now when you click it, it sort of tries to draw it from the out. It tries to execute that code from the outside. So what we need to do is we need to take this set. This is like an initial one that executes straight off the bat. We also need to put this at the start of the animation so that it always gets reset. Okay, so we can just move this one down. And this is like a zero duration tween, and it just sets all lines back to 40%, 40%, i.e. back to sort of being drawn around the circle. So now when we click it, it works. So that's cool. Let's just look at that in debug mode. There we are. And that's pretty cool, eh? Right, well anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial. I've been meaning to do it for ages, and I'll make sure I include all the things I've talked about in the notes, and I'll see you again. Cheers.